Well, hello, here we are. It is Friday, March 10th, 2023, and this is the weekly video. We do these every Friday, get caught up on auctions that have taken place over the last week on eBay, on live auctioneers. Sometimes we talk about what's going on at Christie's and Sotheby's. As you know, they all have their big sales coming up in just a couple of weeks, around the 20th to the 25th and so forth. And we're going to talk a little bit today about a sale that popped up in the last couple of days. It's taking place at Bonhams Skinner, Boston. Skinner's, as you know, is now under the ownership of the Bonhams group out of London. Which is a huge global auction empire. And it's a small auction, but it's an interesting one. And they've got some good things in it. We're going to talk about it in a bit. And if you haven't checked them out yet on the global pages, check out the auctions taking place at Christie's and Sotheby's. They're all linked in, or you can just go over to their sites and browse around if you like. There's a lot happening. There's a lot happening right now. Doyle's is going to have their sale up in the next couple of days. It'll be posted online. We'll talk about that next week and go from there. Alrighty. So what's been going on? Last week on the eBay side of things, there were some pretty good sales. A number of auctions took place. The prices were strong, and there were a couple of real bargains. It was a real mix, and we're going to get into it right now. Here we go. The Chinese silk, we talked about it last week in the preview, is this nice big silk panel. Had a few poles in the corners, down on the edges here, down in the lower, what was it, in the lower left and the upper left, upper right here in the picture. There were some pulls in the silk. But overall, this was a really nice piece of silk. Very, very finely worked on gold ground, which always gets attention. And even with the poles in the corner, the center of it looked pretty good still. Not a lot of discoloration, not a lot of staining that you often see. The colors still look pretty strong with minimal fading. And at the end, it did pretty well. This panel brought $1,611, as is, as they say. This was sold by a seller named Ancient Civilization over in the UK. They're a fairly new eBay seller. They've only got about 96 feedbacks, but we've got them on a list now, and we'll keep an eye on them, see what else they come up with. All right, and then this was Josh Chamberlain Juice, 1499, had a sale up. We're going to go through some of his results because he had some very nice 19th century, first half of the 19th century rose mandarin and rose medallion. And we've noticed lately, as is evidenced here by the price, there is a resurging interest in this stuff, and the prices have been going up. And demand has been going up. And a few weeks ago, I remember we saw there was a mandarin pattern platter that brought several $1,000s, which we haven't seen in a long time. And here we have this rather nice mandarin oval serving bowl. Let's see how big. Let's get the size of this thing here first. Let's see, how big was this thing? 13 inches. There we go. 13 inches in diameter. Beautifully painted. This was a nice example. The gilding on it was in very good condition. There were a couple of minor firing flaws in the face of the plate. Here, and here, that kind of thing. But the decoration was really, really nice. Had a nice border. The back of it looked absolutely fine. That's what the back of one of these plates looks like. You can even see the cloth lines from where they had it on the table when they were preparing it for the kiln. Sometimes you see these on the back. It looks like it was sitting on a piece of burlap or something. That sort of cloth, so that they could get the porcelain off. If you put it on hard surface, it might stick to it. So they would put them on cloth. But there it is. This was a nice one, and it ended up selling for $819. Not a bad result at all. And then the Rockefeller platter. I think this was sort of a bargain. We've seen a lot of interest in Rockefeller pattern porcelains lately. This was a nice one. It wasn't a big one, though. It was only 8 inches in diameter, 9 inches in diameter. But in the last few weeks, we've seen a number of them sell for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. There was a big platter that sold for around $10,000 just last week, almost identical to this one in many ways. And this one didn't quite get there. This was a pretty good buy. Sold for $1,475. Not bad at all. That was maybe one of the better, really good buys of the week for what it is and what we've seen them sell for in the past, which has been quite significant. And then the red back the plate. This was in my opinion, these are difficult to date. There's actually another one that's coming up for sale, very similar to this, over on Live Auctioneers. I forget who has it. Maybe it's Bronx or somebody. And they often these were done in the early 19th century, and they were often done to emulate ruby, what were called ruby back plates. And this is a revival of a ruby back. It had a Young Chen sticker on it. I don't think it was Young Chen, and Josh didn't think it was either. I think he referred to it as probably early 19th or late 18th century, which I think is about right. It looks like a Jai Jing example to me. But it was very nicely done. Nice pattern, nice decoration, well drawn. The colors were good. It was in very nice condition, and it got a lot of interest. It sold for $828. Had it been a Yong Chen ruby back or an early Qianlong ruby back, it probably would have sold for in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. That's the difference, really. Between them, so you just have to kind of keep that in mind. And then the pistol-handled urn with the faux bois base on it here down at the bottom. They decorated them to simulate wood. This was something that was developed during the Qianlong period. The emperor was a big fan of this stuff, and they did it in all kinds of materials. They emulated all kinds of materials, from pudding stone to marble to, in this case, they did wood and so forth, and then they would put the vase on the piece on top of it. Sometimes they did the entire body of the piece in faux bois. In this case, they just did the plinth, and then you have this large upper section, heavily gilded, very nice rose mandarin coloring, really, really, really nice colors. Beautiful done, and it got some interest, and it sold right about where we thought it would probably sell, around $2,500. Sold for $2,413. Which is interesting because these back in the 90s, when American Furniture and all that stuff was selling like hotcakes, pairs of these would sell for $5,000 to $8,000. And then for a while they came down in value. There was a falling off of interest, and I have a feeling that interest is coming back, especially as there's been a bit of a resurgence, as we've talked about before, in antique American furniture, antique English furniture, European furniture. That market seems to be coming back a bit because there's a lot of wealth around right now, and people are, the kids are growing up, and they want their houses to look a little bit better, and so IKEA doesn't cut it anymore. So it seems like there are some people going out to the auctions and buying some good furniture, good sideboards, and then now they're seeking accessories to go on them. And if that's what's going on, you're going to see the export market pick up considerably. And then you have the rose mandarin cut corner bowl, and this is a very common shape bowl. They're called cut corners when they do them like this. It's a square bowl with these pinched corners and then the sweeping sides and so forth. But this was a very unusual one because of the pattern. We talked about it last week in the preview. The figures are beautifully drawn. This bowl was made in the around 1830 to 1840, somewhere in there. Nicely finished, in good condition, and it got a lot of interest. It sold for $2,725. And it's important to keep in mind that this was all due to the decoration, not the shape of the bowl. This bowl was done in many variations as far as decorations go. Sometimes they did them in the Fitzhugh pattern, or they did them in the old Nanking pattern, or just did them in standard rose mandarin or rose medallion patterns. And they don't bring anywhere near this. Typically, they bring a bowl like this in those patterns would sell for probably between $550, $600, and $800. But when it had this decoration on it, very powerfully done, very vibrantly done, and in beautiful condition. Notice the gilding is still intact on the rims. Always check the gilding first, and you don't see a lot of chipping to the enamels. The colors are all still good and strong, very fine quality stuff. $2,725 was the selling price. It's quite good. And then there was the pair of bow pots. These are perennial favorites among collectors. And these came down a bit in value over the years, and now they seem to be sort of have bottomed. And I think you'll be seeing them go up again. This was a very nice pair, and I think whoever got these got a pretty good buy. They sold for $1,525, or around $750 a piece, which seems very reasonable to me. I think that this was one of the really good buys. You could buy one of these things. You could buy these for $700-800 a piece, where they used to be $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. and we'll see if they start to see a surge in values, because these are very nice and they display beautifully. They're nice to have around. And then this was from a U.S. 2013 Haru. He's a regular seller out in Ohio. He gets good things. Doesn't sell a lot, but when he does, he has nice objects. And he has this. This is either a 5th or a 6th rank civilian rank badge from the Qing Dynasty. It looked like it was in nice condition overall. The gold bird, the gold phoenix in the center looks pretty good. And it did well. It brought $510. Not as much as we've seen on all of them in the past, but this is a pretty standard one. There's nothing very unusual about it to drive the price particularly. It's just a nice, standard, and very clean example. It looks like it's the seller described it as being in excellent condition. I don't disagree with him on that. It really is. Even all the ticking around the frame the piece is still in good shape and still adhered well. Nice looking thing. And moseying along to these, the pair of urns. I had several inquiries about this on the identification assistance side this week about these, because people were wondering about the crazy ormolu mounts on this and whether or not they were old. And when I looked at them, I don't think they are. I think these are late 19th or 20th century ormolu fittings on there, done in the manner that was so popular in the 18th century with ormolu mounted porcelains of the Qianlong period, which was done to them often when they got to Europe, especially France. The French would add, originally the French put silver and gold on them. And then when that got a little too pricey for the average person, they shifted over to bronze and then gilded bronze and that kind of thing. There are books out there on mounted porcelains everywhere, the history of it and how it came about and who did the work and so forth. And this was, somebody took a pair of 18th century Qianlong beakers, which is what these are. These are nice examples, export examples. And they had them mounted, and it looks like they were mounted. It's hard to say when exactly, but sometime probably in the very end of the 19th or into the 20th century. Well, when that was, who knows? These might have been added. There are places over in Europe that'll do these today and look just like this. So it's hard to date them, but the vases were nice, and the vases are what brought the value. They sold for $892. Which looks fine. They probably would have brought more had they not had the mounts on them, if they were just freestanding, because you could see the condition. Now, they may have had some condition issues that the mounts covered up, so you never really know. But overall, these were very nice and accurately dated as pre-1800s. And let's see, these came from the seller Tradeold in Buffalo in New York. Very nice, though. They were very elegant. And then over to this, the paintings the seller had up. This was Stubbsy Wubsy over in Essex in the UK. He had a couple of paintings up from an album of some kind. We talked about it last week. They need to be framed nicely. They look great. Keep the calligraphy. And both of them sold. This one sold for $357 US or 300 pounds. And the other one sold for around the same amount. I think it was within $25 of it. But these were nice pictures, beautiful pictures. And these are the kinds of things that, if you like Chinese paintings, you don't have to spend, you don't have to buy a painting by Shi to appreciate and own some nice work. These were nicely done pictures with some script, some good solid calligraphy. And they were in nice condition, ready to go. That's a nice thing. All right, so you can collect the paintings. And then the Femiver vase. This was a covered jar, rather. It was, let's see here, baluster vase. This was sold by Migulari. And he's pretty accurate on dating these. He called it Qing around probably 1840s, which is possible. Let's see here, enameled vase, original cover. I think it was around 17 inches tall. And ended up selling for $1,036, which is right about exactly where it should have ended up. I think when we looked at this, we thought it would bring $900 to $1,200 or something like that in that range. And that's what it brought. But it's just, that's what they always seem to bring. So it's no special skill on our part here. That's that form, that style, that type. After a while, you sort of recognize what they're going to bring up front. And then the 1780s Mandarin export punch bowl. This was a nice one. It was heavily decorated. The decoration on this was extremely dense. There was very little left plain, and the colors were very vibrant, very strong. These diaper patterns around the side, and the gilding was all in good condition. And at some point along the way, somebody added a copper rim here, and they added a copper rim around the lower section just above the foot, or above the base where it meets the body, which I'm not sure why they did it. It may have had a frit out of it, it may have had a nick out of it, and it may have something they'd just done for aesthetic purposes. Who knows? Some of these people would add, in the Sung Dynasty, they added metal rims, of course, to prevent chipping and nicking to the edge of the bowl because they were fairly delicate. And here somebody did it to a bowl from the 18th century, but I don't know when it was done. I suspect it was probably done in the 19th century when they were mounting things all the time. But this was a beautiful bowl, and it ended up selling for $917. And it wasn't an enormous bowl. It was around 11 inches or so in diameter, as I recall. What is this? 28 centimeters in diameter, so about... what's that come out to? About 10 inches, 10 and a half inches or so, 10, 11 inches, somewhere around there. $917. That was a good price. It's a nice bowl, though. That was a good example, good solid example. And that pattern you see a lot, but it was nicely done. And then this, the Kangxi Cafe au lait bowl with the cobalt interior. The seller just listed this as 18th century, playing it a little bit safe, which is fine. But those of you that collect Qing wares and 18th century wares will recognize it right away that it's a Kangxi piece. The way the foot is done, this very dense white porcelain that you see on Kangxi wares, and left unglazed down to the base, and then these sort of typical little black spots and impurities you see on the bottoms of these. It's not unusual. Little iron oxide line turning orange here on the inside of the foot. It all looked fine for Kangxi period, and it ended up doing pretty well. It sort of brought the Kangxi price, brought $1,878. And how big was this? This was 25 centimeters in diameter, so around 9 inches. Nice bowl, though. Nice bowl. Miguel gets good things. So he's out there hunting all the time. And then this was one of the relative bargains for the week, and this sold to one of the people that actually listened to the advice to leave a bid. Just leave a bid. This is an 18th century side-handled chocolate pot with this rather cool sterling silver hinge on it that was most likely added in Holland or in France or something, which was commonly done in the 18th and early 19th century to these pots. They'd put a hinge on it to keep it in one place. And it was beautifully done. Beautiful application of that. This was a really nice piece of Famille Rose. I thought it was just terrific. And there's the front of it. And ended up selling for, look at this, $133. This was a fairly large pot, too. It was, what was this, around 10 inches tall or something? Did he even bother putting the dimensions in? He probably just assumed everybody knows how big they are. These are typically around 10 to 12 inches tall. It was a nice big piece of export ware. And $133, which was very short money. Typically, these pistol-handled, side-handled chocolate pots, coffee pots, bring anywhere, well, on the lowest side, about $275, $300 each, but more typically in the $450 to $550 range. So this was a good buy. And he actually sent me a note that he got it, and he just said, yeah, you're right, leave a bid. Do leave bids. And this is the kind of thing that you could end up picking up, go across auctions and just plunk down even silly bids. He said this was a silly bid. He said he just left this bid on there, and he didn't know if he'd get it or not, and he was shocked that he got it. And that's a good way to buy porcelain and buy art. Just leave bids on the things you like the most that are in your budget, and then go for it. And then this 18th century blue and white dish. This was a nice old dish, beautifully decorated. It had a star crack on the bottom, which you see all the time on this. But the front of the plate looked very nice and a bit unusual in the application of some of the patterns. But looking at the foot rim and this outer decoration here, all looked very consistent. And I like the rabbits. It had the little those little rabbits that you used to see on Kangxi wares all the time. A couple of rabbits over here underneath these trees. And somebody picked this up for, look at this, $19.81. There you go. And it was about a 9-inch plate or 11-inch plate. How big was it? 11 inches in diameter. So it was almost a charger. And this was sold by Goxstein. And this is somebody I've never seen before. He had a bunch of things up last week that were Chinese. He's over in the UK. How do you go wrong? $19 plus shipping for an 11-inch 18th century Chinese plate. It's got a star crack, but you'll notice the star crack isn't really that visible on the front, which is important. I don't even see it. It may be there. It's very faintly there. But if you're shopping on a budget, this is the kind of thing anybody new to collecting could afford. As an example, you can learn from it. And it was very, very inexpensive. This was way under the money. Even with the hairline in it, it should have brought $60 to $100, $70 to $100. So whoever got that got a good buy. All right, and then the fan. I'm surprised this made it through. When we put this on the site last week, I thought this thing will get pulled down before the end of the sale because of all this ivory on here. Well, it didn't. It got completed. It's still visible. That means it was sold in this very nice mandarin pattern around the inside. And he didn't say whether or not the faces are in ivory. On some of these export fans, on the really fancy ones, on each of the faces, all these faces would have a little tiny round ivory plaque applied to the fan. And on that ivory, they would paint the faces. I don't think this is one of those. But boy, it's a good one. Beautifully done blades. The blades were meticulously done, and they look like they were overall in quite good condition. Looks like there's a little, no, that looks okay there. That looks fine. I'm trying to find a fault in it to understand, because I think the price was very reasonable. I thought the price was $850. I mean, that's sort of the range they sell in, and it did have its original box, I guess. But in the past, we've seen similar fans sell for $1,100, $1,200. So we've seen them sell for less too, $650, $700. But this was a nice one, and it sold for a good price, I guess, but not a crazy price. And then this plate, I just absolutely loved this dish. Had very unusual color. It had a star crack on the back over here, but very unusual color palette using the use of greens. Green and pinks were the dominant colors in this, obviously, with a rooster in the center. And just last week, I heard from somebody that collects rooster patterns, and it reminded me that a lot of people collect rooster patterns, so we put this in. But I thought this was a very interesting dish because of the color palette. The pattern is fairly well known since the Yongchen period, but the palette, the colors, just are great. And somebody picked this up for $372, and that was because I suspect solely due to the interesting selection of colors. All right, and then this was the robe. We had looked at this. We talked about it last week, and we thought it would bring probably 4,000 or 5,000, maybe 6,000. Ended up selling for 4,200. Here it is. It was a little rough around here up on the collar. I remember talking. There was some little bits of damage and whatnot, but that all can be fixed. Don't let that discourage you. Always pay attention to the artwork first. Look at how well is the object done. How beautiful is it, and then from there, calculate what it's worth because it might have a little damage or some pulls to it. But often, as I've said many times, some of the most interesting objects that turn up on the Asian art market or the antique market in general are not always perfect. And if it's a great thing, if it would be one of the greats in perfect condition, it's still pretty great even if it's not in perfect condition because the inherent quality of the item is still there. The inherent quality. And this had very nice quality. And what was unusual about this, and I don't know how many people noticed it, but they put a basket here, which I have not seen that. I've seen it occasionally. There's a vase, there's a robe like this in the catalog from the Indianapolis Art Museum on their robe collection, as I recall. But they put a vase in the middle here, so you have the two dragons pursuing the pearls here, and pearls everywhere, because every time you see a dragon, look for a pearl. It seems. They plunked in this very attractive vase with flowers coming out of it, which is a very nice touch. And I'm not seeing that much. And then lots of flowers scattered all over this thing. So it's a very attractive robe. And I was thinking it might bring 6,000 because of that. But apparently it didn't interest as many people as I thought it might. But still, a decent price and a very nice piece of silk. And as always, silk continues to go along with a pretty steady demand all the time, all the time. All right, and we'll get to some things coming up on eBay in a minute, but I wanted to first go through this Skinner auction that I talked about at the beginning of the sale. Skinner's, as many of you know, was bought. Skinner Boston was bought last winter, about a year ago, just about a year ago, I guess, somewhere around there, by Bonhams in London. And they went on a buying spree. They brought up a number of little auction houses around the United States, and they bought Skinner Boston to get a presence there. And there's a number of auction houses. Doyle just opened a new office in Boston that's very nice, and Christie's and Sotheby's, of course, have had offices in Boston for decades, because a lot of stuff comes out of New England that ends up in New York or ends up in major auctions. But they have this sale coming up, and it's a small sale, 71 lots. But there's some very interesting things in here, but they have fairly aggressive estimates, but not necessarily crazy, but fairly aggressive, but some very good pieces. And they're the property of let's see here, Milton Drexel, Rutherford. And somebody said this family was somehow connected to Drexel, the school. But he was a well-known man in Chicago. He was involved with the developing out there and so forth of subway systems and things like that. I think he was pretty successful financially, and he got into Asian art collecting. And these are some of the things he owned. I don't think it was his entire collection, but a number of good pieces, and I want to just go through them quickly to share with folks, because Skinner's has sort of danced around a little bit on the descriptions as far as dating goes. And this is something that a bad habit they've gotten into over the years, and they've really got to cut it out. And add more pictures. This is one of my big bones of contention. Bonhams, with their New York operation and their London operation, include lots of photographs. All right, but their other operations, their one in Australia in particular, and Skinner's Boston, they skimp on pictures, which is just a silly waste of time. And it just annoys the hell out of me, to be perfectly honest. But they have this very nice looking, and they call it a Sung-style lacquer mallow-form dish. This looks like a very old dish to me. And sometimes Skinner's, I know, will put style on it when they don't dare to commit to age, because they're afraid of having it come back to bite them. And maybe they should be reaching out to Bonham's home office a bit more and getting some assistance on dating these things, if they're going to do this. But anyway, this you might want to look into this. This could be a sung piece of lacquer, judging by the color. It's very hard to tell because they don't provide any pictures of any other part of it, not the back of it, nothing else. But if it's of interest to you, maybe ask them for some better pictures of it to do some comparisons. The next thing up is this large. They call it a cream glazed tripod censer. And they're dating it as 19th century. This doesn't look like 19th century to me. This looks like 17th century to me. So, and it looks like an early piece of possibly Dewa. And it's got some inscriptions on it and so forth. It's a very interesting, very evocative thing. I would suggest some of you out there get a little more information on this. Again, they've given just 2 pictures, no pictures of the interior. No pictures of the base, no pictures of the feet, give an indication of wear. Very little information. Estimated at $1,200 to $1,800 with a $600 opening bid. But they have it. And this is pretty good size too. It's 12 inches in diameter. All right, so it's 10 inches wide, 12 inches deep. That's what they're saying. Looks like it's more likely 12 inches wide, but at any rate, it's a bigger piece. Estimated, as I said, $1,200 to $1,800, $600 opening bid. But that looks like an older piece. It certainly looks at least to be 18th century and possibly 17th. It's old. And then this Zhuzhou iron brown and black glazed lidded jar. And again, they're calling it Sung to Yuan style. I don't know why they're not just saying Sung to Yuan, because that's certainly what it appears to be. I think they're just being a little bit cowardly. Anyway, this looks like an interesting thing, and it has its lid. These bowls often don't have their lids. This one has it, the finial broken off, but at least it's got its cover. And this is a pretty rare bird. It's 5 inches in diameter. It's got a $600 to $800 estimate. That seems very low. Looks like a $3,000 or $4,000 pot to me. So again, you're going to have to call them and get photographs because they didn't provide them. And then over here, there's some very nice pieces of Peking glass. They're heavily estimated, though. This one is a $13,000 opening bid with a $25,000 to $35,000 estimate. It is mark and period. It is a Qianlong example. It is in this very nice yellow tone. The bottom of it at some point may have had some adhesive or something on there. Something happened there, but it is marked. It's got the wheel cut mark on the bottom. The bottom looks fine. And the shape is one of those really classic Peking glass bottles. It's just 5 7/8 inches tall. I'll be very curious to see if this one sells, if this gets off the ground, because that estimate seems way out of line for what that is. Now, maybe they found an example like this that brought that much money, but typically these, the ones that I've seen in the last few years, have been selling for between $10,000 and $15,000. So the estimate is right up there as far as that goes, and the opening bid is very high. So we'll see. And then this, the Japanese textile panel. If you like Japanese stuff, there's some very good Japanese material in this sale. Down at the bottom, I'll go back quickly and show you down here, because it all fits on one page. At the end of the Chinese material, you get down here, and there's some nice pieces of mixed metal bronzes inlaid, a very nice Shibayama vase, which for some reason has a very low estimate, $400 to $600. I don't know, is there anything wrong with this thing? I don't know. I'm a bit confused to why the estimate on this is so low. If you're a Shibayama collector, you might want to check that out, because this is it looks to be of a type that typically sells for again $4,000 or $5,000, $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the size. This one is 12 inches tall. It's pretty big. That's big for one of those. Get a condition report. I don't have any idea why that estimate is so low. It seems crazy. Really low estimate. All right, now hopping back over to here. There's this nice Japanese textile picture. It's a little dark, but the figural work and the inlay work is very good on it. And the estimate on it is just $600 to $800, $300 to jump into the bidding. Looks good. And then this, the Parcel Gilt Alloy Repoussé vase. Now, they have this in as China Tang style, but they don't give any reasoning why. It comes out of a collection in New York, according to the thing here. And a similar object was featured in a book by the Dayton Art Institute in 1984. And I looked at this, and I haven't seen it in person, but if any of you out there like early metalwork, you might want to investigate this. I'm not quite sure if they just put Song to Yuan Tang style on it just as protection or what. But the way the tiger is done and the birds are done and all this work, this thing looks pretty convincing. And I would urge you to go look, because if it is a Tang example, how big was it? Before I open my big mouth. 10 inches tall. Okay, it's a pretty good size one. If this does turn out to be a Tang example and Skinner's is wrong on the dating, which they often are, it could be a $30,000 or $40,000 piece of silver. I'm not saying it is, but you got to look into it. You got to see the pictures of it. Talk to them about it, and why did they just give it a style attribution and not Tang? Because it's not very helpful. And then the Kengshi jar. This is a nice one, big Femi-Vert jar with an $8,000 to $12,000 estimate, $4,000 opening bid. Looks absolutely fine. I don't know if it's got any damage on the other side of it, because they didn't provide any more pictures in this one. They didn't show the bottom, which is crucial, because this looks very much like in the shape to some of the later Shunzi and early Kangxi examples. And then sometimes it's almost impossible to tell the difference. But this is a nice looking jar with the battle scene on it, and I don't think the estimate is out of line. I think the starting price is a little tough to take for some, but that it is worth it. It's definitely worth the $4,000. And then the blue and white elephant form kendi. that they've dated just as being late Ming. Well, it's a Wan Li example, as most of you will know, of an elephant. And these turn up pretty often. They're not common, and they're certainly desirable and quite collectible. And this one has a good look to it. It looks clean. It's got the extra ornaments hanging off the elephant going down the side, the pendants, and you have this horse bowing his head down and all this nice patterning in here. It's nicely modeled. It looks like it's in good condition. I don't see any chips or fritting. And all that. So overall, it looks good. The estimate is $4,000 to $6,000 with a $2,000 opening bid, which is about right. Some of these bring more. Some of these examples with little differences can bring $10,000 to $15,000, but I think $4,000 to $6,000 is sort of in there. It could go for $3,000, but $4,000 to $6,000 is not unreasonable. I'll just leave it there. All right, and then the Kangxi Dragon Vase. This is a nice vase, a very good example, very classic, very good dark blue cobalt decoration. The dragon is meticulously drawn, and I don't see any repairs on it, but you do want to get a condition report. The estimate is $15,000 to $25,000, and the starting bid is $7,500. Boy, they're really pushing the estimates here. That seems a little silly to me to set this up. No, maybe the consignor was demanding all this, unsure of whether he should sell the things in Boston instead of New York. It may have come down to that or something, or somebody in the family. Maybe sometimes what happens is family members get a hold of people and they get outside offers and other things, and they want to make sure they cover themselves, so they force the auction house to accept very high estimates and reserves. I don't think the estimate is at all out of line, but I think the opening bid price is a bit on the high side. I don't know why they do that, but at any rate. This was a nice vase in this pattern. If you look it up, other auction houses, what they've sold them for, the base price for this vase at the least is around $25,000, and there are a number of them out there that have sold for $40,000 and $50,000, $60,000, and I think that the more realistic estimate is probably 30 to 40 or 40 to 50. And we'll see how it does. Why don't we bookmark it? There we go. There, we'll bookmark that. I'll go back and check it and see how it did. But it's a nice piece of porcelain. And if you're a Japanese Kutani collector, this is a good one. This is a nice big piece of early Kokutani from the 17th century. It was made about 1680, very classically done. These are done in pottery, of course, instead of porcelain. Nice form, beautiful potting, nice decoration. Bottom looks absolutely fine for that dating. It is 8 5/8 inches tall, and estimated at $15,000 to $25,000, which is what they can bring easily. And again, a $7,500 opening bid. Oh, and this was the other piece of glass. That's right. I put them both up. This is the amber Peking glass bottle. Again, with a little bit more reasonable opening bid and estimate. And I love the amber color. I love this color. I like it better than the yellow, actually. And I like the little blotches that formed in the glass here, the light areas. I think that's nice. They probably consider it a defect. I kind of like it. $5,000 opening bid, and again, this is around 5 inches in height, 5 3/4 inches. And then this is one of the things that caught my eye, is one of the nifty things in this sale. I absolutely love these 18th century white porcelain, sort of emulating Blanc de Chine, Dewa porcelain. This one was done in Qingdechen. It measures 10 inches tall, the figure. I think the overall height of the thing, because it has a lamp, back. It's mounted on this thing. The lamp they didn't drill into it. The lamp just goes up behind it, which is great. Is around 29 inches tall. Make a wonderful table lamp. It's got 2 sockets built into it. I would urge anybody buying it to rewire it, because you burn your house down. But this is a nice piece of Dewa. I mean, a nice piece of white glazed porcelain, rather. And they did these also in the 18th century, as you all know, with export wares of figures, and they often put enamels on them. And this is in that same school. But the fact that the basket is still intact, the fingers have a couple of breaks on the tips, but the basket is intact, and the facial modeling is very good. The way the face is done, and I love the way they applied the little bits of hair on the side of the head. Very nice. This is a really nice piece, and I think the estimate on this is very reasonable. $700 to $900 with a $350 opening bid. If you like statues and you like 18th century ceramics, this is a good thing. And it's the estimate is very reasonable, and the starting bid is very reasonable. It's something to go after. All right, and then the last thing in the sale I want to talk about is this Kangxi powder blue ground and gilt decorated rouleau vase. It's a nice one. It's 18 inches tall. It's good size. This also comes, all of these things, I believe, except for one or two, came from Mr. Rutherford. There was a couple of pieces that came from a New York collection they have. But this was a very attractive vase. Beautifully done. The gilding was in nice condition overall. A little bit of wear up in here. You can see some of it's missing. But overall, the gilding on it was quite good. There's some script on the back of it. It's in some gold script going down it. Some of it's, a little bit of it's missing and worn off. But overall, this is a nice vase. $3,000 to $5,000 estimate, $1,500 opening bid, which seems perfectly within reason. So take it from there. I think it'll bring more. I think it'll bring 6,000 to 10,000, but we'll see. We'll see. You never know. And Boston auctions are wild cards anyway, so you never know what's going to happen in Boston. And then over here, this is some of the things that are coming up this week on eBay. As I say each week, if you haven't subscribed yet, come over to the newsletter page, which is linked here off the homepage. It's right here. Sign up. And we've gotten quite a few new subscribers lately. Thank you for joining us. And it's free. It's completely free. Just put in your name, your email address, and your name if you want to, or your initials or something. That's all. You don't have to. We don't need any more information from you than that. We just need to know where to send the emails when the page gets updated every Friday. And this is last week's selections that we found on eBay that we've included. We do look at all of these. Somebody asked me, "How do you actually look at all these things?" We look very carefully at everything that we put on here. We try to, and make sure they look all right. And there's certain things, even if they're old pieces, if they're misdated, in the way that if it's an 18th century piece and they're advertising it as early Ming, we're not going to put it in, because that's too far off the mark. But if they date something as 19th century and it's actually 18th or 17th century, we're going to put it in the newsletter, because people out there, a lot of you are very knowledgeable, and you'll know, and you'll say, hey, that's a dating mistake, because dating mistakes happen a lot. All right, so this week, this is just a few of the things that are going to be on the newsletter page, is this tortoiseshell box. And I forget how they described this. It was rather clever. Chinese carved box, late Qing dynasty. Okay, this is the box, and you can see the tortoiseshell. It's clearly tortoiseshell. And this is a Cantonese box, and it was done during the first half of the 19th century, I believe. I don't think this is a late Qing piece per se, meaning from the 1880s or 90s. I think this was more likely done around 1840. And it's a good-looking one. Very nice detail. And we've seen these turn up in the past, and they, depending on their condition and quality of carving, they bring anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, sometimes $2,500. This one's just up to $360. It's got a day to go. It closes tomorrow, Saturday, and expect it to get up to $1,000 to $1,400. And if it goes for less than that, you got a great buy. Now, it is in the United States, so you don't have to worry about shipping it. If this was in England and you're in the U.S., I would not recommend you bid on this, because you could have a problem at customs. All right? And you want to sort of keep that in mind. All right, and the other thing that's going to come up, now this plate has some damage to it, but it's a very nice plate in that it's got these figures running around the outside of it, all these different characters. And I just liked it. It caught my eye. I thought this was interesting. It probably won't sell for a huge amount, because the guy put damaged on there in big writing. I don't know what the damage is. Does he say? Condition damaged with a hairline crack. No rest. Oh, it has a hairline in it. All right, that isn't too bad. It should bring 100 to 150 regardless. But the pattern, the design on the border, with these Chinese gentlemen going around it in various pursuits, talking to each other, a picture of them joining Buddha, and so forth. I think this is somebody getting lectured up here. It's sort of interesting. The border's more interesting than the plate. The plate is sort of a stock pattern. That's a pretty standard pattern. Woman playing the instrument and in a little den there with scrolls and whatnot in the background. A big moon window off to the side, and a little boy amusing himself. There you are. All right. So and that's up to just $21. So go after it. And last week they had that ivory fan that was on here that got through. And now you have this one. This one has lacquered blades, so you don't have to worry about customs with this one. Very nicely done lacquer work. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful examples. And the Chinese figures are nicely painted on here. Mid-19th century example, 1850 or so, 1860. Lots of people. What people don't understand is that the Chinese made hundreds and thousands of fans. There are some books out there that talk about the export years of 1830 to 1860, and the one fellow talked about the absolute phenomenal bounty of fans that were shipped over to Europe because they were so popular in England and France and so forth that the Chinese just found willing markets for them every time they sent them, and they were very inexpensive typically. Relative to what things cost in Europe at the time. So everybody bought these Chinese fans, either with lacquer blades, tortoiseshell blades, or ivory blades. These holders here at the bottom. At any rate, this one's up to $102. It just went up last night. It's got 9 days to go. Go in and leave a bid on it. This is Woolworths down in Rhode Island. We haven't been featuring much of their stuff lately because they've been selling, as a lot of you know, they've had a lot of repros of Ming and Sung and other wares, and I don't know where they've been getting it, but they've been sort of tearing it up with that stuff for the last year or so, it seems, and selling a lot of fakes, unfortunately. And I don't know if they know they're selling fakes or what the deal is there, but this isn't that. This is legitimate. This looks like they got into an estate somewhere, got a nice export fan. This is not a copy of one. It's the real deal, so go with that. All right, and this is the Ceramics and Collectibles guys. Shangri-La have this very elegant 18th century armorial teapot, arms of Hollingsworth on it. But this is a absolutely beautifully done pot. Superb. Beautiful gilding. This blue band around the top, the gilded band through here, the nice strap handles that are trimmed in gold, and the spout trimmed in gold, and the lid trimmed in gold. This is a really nice example. And it's up to $325. It closes next Thursday. How big is it? 6 inches or so? Do they put the dimensions on here? I can never find their dimensions. Oh, there it is. There's this. They put the size in the condition section here. 210 millimeters. That's 21 centimeters. That's 8 inches in width. A little over 8 inches. So it's a good sized teapot. That's a big teapot. 8 inches wide. It's up to $325. Should get to about 700, 600 or 700, I think. It's a beautiful example and in nice condition. If you're an export collector, you want to chase that. It's a nice thing. And then this, they're dating it as a Qianlong period twin-handle pot with relief work with a Fu Lion on it and so forth. This one has the lid to this I know is repaired. I took a look at this underneath, but it's a nice form. Often this pattern is they attribute these more often to the Yongchen period or early Qianlong period. So it's a little hard to date, but it's very safe to say mid-18th century on that. And it's just up to $21. Closes Sunday. It would be a great buy if you could pick it up for under $150. It's a nice piece of porcelain, even with the repair. And then you have this, the blue and silk damask weave horseshoe cuff Jufu Lang Pao dragon robe. Boy, they really did the whole thing. This seller is a textile specialist, by the way. This is the seller's name is username is 1860 to 1960. and they deal in vintage fabrics, vintage textiles. And over the years, they've come up with some very nice pieces of Chinese silk. And this one looks like it's in outstanding condition. It's in beautiful, beautiful shape. I don't see any signs of wear. This probably never was worn. This might be one of those robes that was brought back by people in China at the turn of the last century, somewhere on there. This robe was probably made between 1900 and 1920. It's a nice looking robe. It's up to $2,525. It'll probably go another $1,500 before it finishes. But this is a pristine example piece. This piece is in absolutely superb condition. And the first place you want to look, by the way, a little tip on robes. When you look at them, check up here in the area around the collar on these. On Chinese robes, if they were worn much in the culture, you'll see wear there. You'll see oil from the back of the neck pressing on the robe sometime. The liner of the robe it's blue, but sometimes it'll look a little faded from friction, the robe being put on and take off. And check the banding down here on the closure to see if it isn't got some pulls in it and whatnot, because that does happen to these. This has none of that, so it's in good condition. It's in beautiful shape. And then this is a set of books that I saw. It has just one bid. It closes next Thursday. If you're interested in Chinese furniture, bid on these. These are good. This is a set of 16 books from Chinese classical furniture. And I believe these were published. I didn't go and look it up, but I'm pretty sure these were published by that a museum that got in trouble with the IRS out in California. I may be wrong. Let me know in the comments. But I think this is the outfit that back in the 90s they had a organization that was funded that were buying Chinese furniture, really rare, great Chinese furniture. They had some of the best Ming furniture that ever was collected. And they began publishing these journals. And they got into some sort of tax hassle with the Internal Revenue Service, and they were shut down and they liquidated the place, as I recall. But their research was excellent. What they put out was great. They had amazing scholarship. And it's a little bit like in the U.S., those of you that are familiar with American furniture know about the Chipstone Foundation that was started with a guy named Luke Beckerdite many years ago. And it was funded by a wealthy Midwest guy to study the history of American furniture, the woods used, all of the history of early American furniture in particular. And this was sort of the same thing, but done with Chinese furniture. And this is 16 volumes. From 1990 to 1994, they published something. I think it was a quarterly, but if this sells for $500, that's fine, because you got 16 books in here. You figure each one of them is at least worth $20 a piece, $30 a piece. So at the minimum. So rationalize it that way. But these would be great to put in your library. Good information on them. And then this is coming up. This closes in a couple of. When does this close? It closes on Sunday. This is Room Tonic. I think he misdated it a little bit. He called this 18th century. This is Rose Canton, and judging by the decoration, I think it was probably made around. He's off by just about 30 years or so. I think it was probably done around 1830 or 40. He's got it as sort of later 18th century, I think. But no matter, it's a nice plate. It's already up to $127 because it's armorial. And there wasn't a lot of armorial stuff done during this period. The big period for armorial export wares, as most of you know, was during the 18th century. And there were still people doing custom orders right until the end of the 19th century, but nowhere near in the volumes that they were doing in the 18th century. In the 18th century, people were buying sets of Chinese porcelain as armorial wares. There was one family out there I was reading about recently, and they'd ordered. It took 2 years for a service. If you ordered a Chinese service in England back in 1875, or 1860, and you wanted to get a dinner service from China with your family's crest on it, it took about 2 or 3 years to get your service back. And there was one family they returned the service on 3 occasions before finally getting the 4th, and it was still wrong. They still got the colors wrong. They kept mixing up the colors in the armorial crest. And family kept saying, no, that should be green, not blue. And then it went back and forth, back and forth. Finally, they got the last one. It was still messed up, and they decided to keep it anyway. But they returned it 3 times. And the kilns would accept, though, the traders would take them back because it was so lucrative doing armorial and doing custom export stuff. It was a very high-paying job. You got paid more doing that than you did working for the royal family. So everybody wanted to be making export wares. And anyway, this one was done in the probably about 1830 or 40. Very nicely done. Lots of gold on it. I like the enamels. It's in beautiful condition. From the front, it looks fine, and it's got this crest on it. And he went and looked it up. It's listed in Howard's, the directory, and he put it in here. He put in the excerpt here. It's tied to the Onslow family, and they're in Chapter 7 on the alphabetical list. The services not illustrated in D.S. Howard's Chinese Armorial Porcelain, published in London in 1974. There it is. And the Howard book is the Bible, as they say. And there's the crest. All right. Now, moseying along over here, there's some other things that are coming up. I mentioned these last week. These close on Sunday. I'm just bringing it up again. These very nice paintings. This one and this one of the 2 gentlemen. They're both up to $244. I suspect they're being bid on by the same person. Because they have 2 bids. They each have 2 bids. And they're right now currently at exactly the same place. These are very nice. $18 to ship them. If you buy both, I'm sure the seller would ship them both for $18 because they were going to fit into the same envelope. Coming out of San Diego's Estate Wonder has these. These are nice paintings. These are really nice paintings. I love the scholars' objects and all the books. The scholars' books in the boxes, sort of going through them on his table. And then you have the other one of the gentlemen. Nice artwork, very attractive, and they look great getting framed. And what size are these things? Could you pick a smaller font? Size. Oh, these are big, 21 by 13 inches. That's right. Yeah, these are good size. So you could make a wall in a dining room with these, or a library or something. They look great. And then the last one is this, a very nice Chunlung period export teapot with molded and shaped handles, and it's very, very nicely done, very atmospheric, soft blue against the white porcelain. I like that, and I like the shape of that handle. I like the way that handle bows out very, very nicely, and you have the serpent spout on here. So a serpent handle, serpent spout, and nicely done body. It's got 1 bid. It's $345. It looks like it's got a small chip to the rim and handle, possibly a small chip to the foot. Often when there are chips on feet, it wasn't so much that they got chipped by damage. It was sometimes when they came out of the kiln, a little piece of it got left behind, and you see these sometimes chips on the inside of foot rims. But this is a good-looking teapot. It's a very nice example, and there'll be a lot more on there. This is just a dozen or so of the pieces that'll be in there that we've got queued up to share. But if you want to see what else is on there, go to the newsletter page later today, or late any Friday evening, and it's all been updated and so forth. And the global pages have a bunch of new sales on there. There is a very good auction that Heinman's has that we just put on the global pages this week. If you haven't checked it yet, we covered it in the weekly video over there. On the global page video, talked about the auction. They have good Japanese, good Chinese material. Looks like they got into a couple of good collections, and the estimates and everything are pretty reasonable. So absolutely check that out. All right, that's it for the week. If you enjoy these, subscribe and leave a comment. I read the comments every week. I don't always comment on the comments because I like people to just be able to say what they want and not feel like I'm hanging around sticking my nose in every place. But do leave a comment and do subscribe and visit bidamount.com for information. Join the newsletter page and all that stuff and the global pages if you'd like. And we'll go from there. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks again. And see you all next week. All right. Oh, just as a quick reminder, the inquiry, the Identification Assistance Service and the inquiries auction inquiry service that we run on off the homepage. A lot of you use it. And I've been trying to remind people all week. I am, as I said last week, I'm going away on the 22nd or so of March, and I'm going to be gone for several weeks. I'll be back in April, and the identification assistant and the preview assistant are going to be turned off until I come back, starting on, I think, Tuesday. So get if you have an inquiry you want to send me, get it in over the weekend. I'm going to finish them out next week, and then I've got some things to get caught up on before we go away the following week. So I want to get everything cleaned up, and as soon as we come back, I'll turn it back on and open it back up again, of course. But while I'm gone, I'm going to try and do the weekly video while I'm down there, and maybe another one. I'll bring my laptop along, and maybe, show you where we're staying and that kind of thing. It'll be fun. And we're going to be in Placencia, down in southern Belize, and on a beach. And I'm looking forward to it. All right. That's all there is this week. Thanks so much, and have a great weekend, everybody. Have a terrific weekend. Okay. Bye-bye.